Beginning with the MLS, we'll talk about a few Canadian teams there. TFC and New York City FC drew 1-1 over the weekend, which extends TFC's winless streak to 12. Wheels, I'm coming back to you here. Too early to say it's a disappointing season?
Well, they just go out and draw every game.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to climb the table when you become Draw FC. And that's exactly what we're experiencing right now with Toronto FC. I do feel kind of awkward about the position that they're in because this is kind of what I expected from Toronto FC. But when you hear things like the rebuild is complete and you see them splashing the cash, then the expectations obviously rise. But I just don't think that the team was in a position to take a step forward, not quite yet. I look at this as being the transformational season. You bring in a lot of players, some really good players as well, who are better than the players that you had before, but it's going to take time for this to click. It's going to take time for this to gel, and it's going to take time for still more players to go out the door so more players can come in. So this is about what I expected. The good news is that they aren't losing many games. The bad news is that they're not winning many games either. They're just the epitome of mediocre at this point for a fan base and supporters group who not only expect them to be very good and competing, but that's been that's kind of been the messaging as well, that this team should be much better than they actually are. So there is a element of pressure, but I'm just looking at this entire thing being a rebuild, and this is very much part of the process.
Draw FC draws mean that you kind of stop the bleeding a little bit, but you don't really close the gap. Like you don't gallop up the table and get close to obviously a franchise that wants playoff football or wants to play in games that matter, and that feels like such a distant memory of times that Toronto FC was doing that. So you have to say it's like satisfactory, right? Like it's maybe below the line of there's not much to get excited for with Toronto FC. I think going into the season though, we talked about so many times about this club and the glory days and where it would be. And people are like, oh, this was a turnaround time. Things take time. I know in MLS is one of those things as well where you get a good roster and maybe this is a season you can go and push on. But it kind of always felt like with Toronto FC, even though you're bringing in certain players, Sargent, and we can go on the list and we'll talk about it in a bit. But is that the fix that Toronto needed? It's just tough to expect more from a team that had so many holes to begin with, and then you patched up a little bit of it going into the season. But I look at this team, and honestly, I don't want to be a hater, but like draws seem like fair results, like based on the squad that they have and the depth that they have in that squad. So like I said, it's stopping the bleeding, but it's not a lot to get excited about.
Jordan, you talked about some of the new players and the new additions. Niklas Dorsch is the most recent acquisition. We talked about him and his potential impact last week, but we saw him start in his debut, and he played 70 minutes, completed 90% of his passes. Jordan, going off of kind of what we were talking about before, what were your first impressions of him and how he can potentially transform the TFC midfield?
A lot of what we said on the OSD when we were together, I know we've been together a couple of times, but I feel like it was like a week or two ago when he was announced, and we just talked about a player that will have that ball progression, like knows how to carry the ball through the midfield and will control the tempo, which is great. But come on, one midfielder can't fix everything, right? Like it's one of those things as well. You also have to give a player grace. I find sometimes too, when you come to a club, like you almost maybe take some time to get up to speed, or you outperform early, and then there's like that coming down phase where like you're at 100% and then you drop down to 70 a little bit. But a player like that, Dorsch, is going to need help and just time to get like acclimated. So obviously a bright spot for Toronto FC. But look, unless you're bringing in a big top dog and usually a goal scorer into the MLS, the midfielders aren't really one single midfielder aren't going to turn around a franchise and make the team that much better and go and win games, right? If you're scoring goals, that's different. But I think you got to give a player like that some time.
Yeah, I thought Dorsch was really good. I think that he could prove to be a really important signing for Toronto FC because, quite frankly, the midfield has been too weak, too soft, not good enough for far too long now. He could be part of the solution here. Like, I don't think TFC have had that really top central midfield player in MLS since Michael Bradley was in his prime. Osorio kind of moved around and has played different areas. He can play in the middle as well. He's been good, but you you need more than one in that position. It's so important. And that's the thing. TFC went about bringing in Mihailovic, and they brought in Sargent, and they brought in Shaloy, other like players if you want to use the analogy, it's like they built the pool, which is the attraction of the house, while the foundation was still wobbly. Like without the center back and the center midfield taken care of, this team is going to continually have problems. And those are the areas for me that you know, if you're not trying to be advantageous, if you're building out from a practical sense, you got to take care of those areas first. And the central midfield has just been really, really poor. So I like what I saw from Dorsch. You said it, Mac. Like, his ball movement was very good. He's got the experience. He's got a little bite to him as well. And like, he was literally signed and was on the field right away. So I think it's going to take a little bit of time to see him at his best. But I thought it was a really positive first impression.
Poetic Wheels. He built the house with no foundation. Write that down. Wobbly. Josh Sargent is another name that's come up, and both of you have alluded to, the excitement and the chatter around him when he first came into the club. Since then, though, he's been in and out of the lineup. Like, he's only had 3 goals in 11 matches. Wheels, how do you feel he's integrated into this group? And might that have been an overhyped signing?
Well, it was overhyped because the price tag that was paid. In no world is Josh Sargent like a $26 million striker. Ooh. Like, it was far too much. TFC paid far too much for that player, but that doesn't mean that he's a bad player, and it doesn't mean that this signing is going to be a bust. It's been a slow start. He wasn't up to full fitness. He hadn't played for a while. When he joined the team, he's kind of been in and out. It was kind of weird that he played in New England and didn't play the next game. So I think overall you're expecting a little bit more, and you're expecting more goals as well. Problem is, this TFC team hasn't created a whole lot. Corbiano's just come back. Him and Shaloy, maybe they can provide a little bit of service down the wings. But this team, again, there's just the balance hasn't been good enough. In terms of expected goals, they're about 23rd in all of Major League Soccer. Like, they need to create more chances, and I think Sargent will be better when the team around him is better. So I know it sounds like I'm kind of taking it easy on TFC here. I'm not, because they were just playing from a deficit, a position which is entirely unacceptable for entirely too long. But just to expect them to splash the cash and snap their fingers and results would immediately follow, it's a fool's game. We all know that. So Sargent, it hasn't been great, but that doesn't mean that it can't be really good. So I'm willing to give this a little bit more time.
Yeah, fair expectations. What I find funny, Wheels, is as soon as you said 26 mil, I saw Mac's brain going. I saw the wheels turning. She's like, well, at least as a host, I should be worth $1 million. Like, if we're doing that, like, I should be, at least give me a quarter of that and 250K.
Writing my new contract.
Being an analyst. You're like, I want to sign on the dotted line. All jokes aside, it's not disastrous, but it's a bit underwhelming. I will say a positive sign, though, with Sargent is that you look at the Italians that were here before, you look at the number 9s or DPs that Toronto FC have had in the past. There's something about his attitude that I will say that is a bit refreshing, probably to the fans, and also when you think about the longevity of the club in the future, was that, it's only 3 goals and he's been in and out of the squad, but there hasn't been a lot of negative press. It felt like, for me, with Insigne as well, Wheels, correct me if I'm wrong, but every other week, this brother something was going on between fighting with fans, like isolated in the locker room. I will say, as much as I believe that 26 mil is a lot of cash to spend on any player, let alone Josh Sargent in the MLS, but if you're gonna go and spend money on a guy, at least you want him to like move and act the right way. The fact that he's been in and out of the squad for health reasons happens sometimes, but if you can get him healthy and get into a run and maybe connect and get some chemistry with Dorsch and other legends, the Osos, the players of this team to really step up, then all of a sudden you get the bleeding of 1 point and you can maybe convert those into 3, and maybe even a playoff run is still in contention, right? They still at that point in the season where you just need a good month, right? A good rhythm, a good wave. So if I'm big dogs on that TFC team, that's kind of what I'm saying. I'm like, guys, we're stopping the bleeding right now. We're stopping the hemorrhaging, but let's go for the jugular at some point, because we've been far too complacent as a club for too long, and we still have enough to make this a competitive season and to really push forward.
They still got to make the playoffs here. Like, now they're coming back home. The start of the season was acclimating new players or new players being brought in. A lot of injuries. We haven't really seen much of Mihailovic and Sargent together. So now that they're back home after a long time away across the World Cup, they got they're in must-win territory, and still in a very, very mediocre Eastern Conference. TFC should be right there. So there's still a little bit of time. I think I'm not trying to kick the can down the road here, but I still think that there's going to be some proper evaluation here over the next couple months that pertains to the players, the manager, the trajectory of this group, because internally the expectations are much higher. And I think that the fans follow suit. They want to be able to rally around this team. And quite frankly, it's been substandard for far too long.
Yep. Well, as you said, there is still time. And also it hasn't necessarily been good, but there's still time to be great, because the problem isn't that they're losing games. It's that they haven't been winning. Continuing on with our MLS conversation, moving on to another Canadian team in the Vancouver Whitecaps, because they and LAFC are tied for first in the West. Jordan, they recently tied 1-1 over the weekend, those two top teams. But in your mind, might the Whitecaps have been more deserving of a better result?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what you do in a draw, right? As soon as you draw a match, specifically two of MLS best teams in LAFC and the Whitecaps, you're going to say, well, who deserved to win, or who had the better chances, who had longer spells of possession and looked more dominant. All of those answers to those questions would be a resounding Whitecaps, right? And the way they play their football. I think for them, too, everyone's respecting them. Everyone knows when you're going to play the Whitecaps, what they can bring, what they can offer, specifically with a lot of their players healthy and a lot of their star power ready and available. But a team like LAFC, when you're 1-1 and playing them, you want to go and finish them off. I will say, though, this team and the Whitecaps are trending in the right direction. You can win whatever you want, Supporters Shield throughout the year, be nice, right? Finish top, okay, you get their confidence. But losing in the final last year, they got to go and get back to another one, right? And go and win it. Like, that's the only way that this season, can champs, they're still going to be favorites. They can still do well with the Supporters Shield and climb the table and be one of the top teams. But that's the one that they want, right? So I think you got to learn lessons when you play the best teams like LAFC, like the Inter Miamis, and make sure that you dominate. But I feel good about them, specifically because a certain wee little man is back in the lineup, and Ryan Gauld. I'm sure we'll talk about him a little bit as we in the show.
2.5 XG in that game. Just didn't and couldn't take their chances. 21 shots against an LAFC side with Bosan and Boanga in the team. Like, it was a strong group. Our guy Schaffelberg was playing, but there was no doubt Vancouver Whitecaps were the better team in that match. And there's no question in my mind that that the Vancouver Whitecaps are the best team in the Eastern Conference, in the Western Conference of Major League Soccer. I just, the fact it's interesting seeing Muller play in a team alongside Gauld. I think Badwell might support them really well because he provides a little bit more legs. And then they bring on like Sabali and others to provide more width later in the game, so they can beat you in different ways. I still think that they're losing Berhalter, their essential midfielder, short. I think that needs to be addressed. But most certainly the Whitecaps deserved to win that game in a really good way. A really good night at BC Place. A big crowd, big game. Like, other than the criticism of the new field at BC Place, I think it was all around a decent night. You would have loved to have come away from with 3 points, but they're level on points with LAFC right now, and they have 2 games in hand, so they find themselves in a really good position.
Wheels, Ryan Gauld is back and healthy. I feel like we've had this conversation a few times because he's had an unfortunate string of injuries. I think about the Canadian Championship final last year, where I interviewed him post-game, and it was, again, a similar sentiment. How big of a difference maker is he?
I mean, it feels like a mid-season addition, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. I love Gauld. Like, there's no question of his quality. It's just how long it's taken him to get back to this point. I mean, it's taken a long time, and you just don't want to see any setbacks or see a player that's maybe a step slower in a way. I think it's too early to determine the long-term effects of an injury like that, but the fact he's back on the field and looks to be in really good spirit and really good shape, and both on and off the field, he's a really important player to this team as well. So I think that this is what most people have been waiting for, to see what him and Muller and White as a big three can kind of do together all on the field at the same time. I think that it does change the way they play to a certain degree. So it might be a little bit of a work in progress to see that group at their best, but another really good player, another threat. It's great to see him back out there.
Oh, Jordan, finally, we figured out how to mute your mic from across the computer.
Oh, I muted it before. No.
There you go.
This hasn't happened in years, man.
I've been working on
Testing. You try to mute my... I said he's clever. His movement on the ball is superb. But he doesn't just free up himself, he frees up other players, right? So Muller's going to get more time on the ball now. He just raises the ceiling of Vancouver. And Wheels, looking at the finals last year as well and seeing the fact that he comes on probably the last 15, 20 minutes of the match, Gauld, when he did, it just felt like if they had him last year with Ahmed, with how they played, that maybe they could have just gave Inter Miami a punch, go into extra time, whatever it might be. The fact that he's coming into form now, 2 goals in 3 games, and he's feeling like himself, I mean, this bodes well for Vancouver Whitecaps, specifically the way they want to play football. I know you're going to tweak things differently because he's not a guy he wants to get on the ball and make things happen, right? But again, like I said, his movement and his awareness and his unselfish play, like that will put Vancouver in a different place that they haven't been. And they've missed him, right? For probably like a year and a half, 2 years, you haven't had a healthy Ryan Gauld. He's just that type of guy. He's a difference maker for a team.
Atmosphere in this game looked unbelievable. 40,000 people. I saw plenty of videos and pictures on socials, lots of, Save the Caps posters, T-shirts, passionate supporter group who came out to this game. There are reports that a new and local ownership group are making a bid to purchase the club. Jordan, is this the light at the end of the tunnel for the Whitecaps, or is it too little too late?
I'm going to say it's too early. It's too early to really know what I mean too early about this ownership group and what that would mean, right? Because it's felt impending, inevitable for quite some time that with this Whitecaps franchise, I was going to move out of Vancouver. Wheels, maybe you know more about it, and maybe people that you've spoken to could give you some insight, but for me, it's just too early. Like, I don't know enough out of the literature, out of the articles that I've drawn, that how much this ownership group is going to actually go and maybe take over and what that looks like and the timing and all of that. But I will say you don't have to look far to see that people of Vancouver want this team here, that there's something special going on there, but sometimes it's out of your control. And I wonder if this is one of those situations with the Whitecaps and not having a stadium and all that's gone on and the revenue not being where it should be. Maybe it is a too little, too late type of situation. I hope not, but it definitely has felt like that for a while.
It sounded like it was too little too late a few months ago. Now, where are we at? It's really tough to tell coming out of the World Cup as well. Big crowd is nice. Obviously, Son is a big attraction, playing LAFC out of that as well. I'd love to see bigger crowds at Can-Champ games and stuff like that. But there's no questioning like the extent of how good the fans and how good the support is in Vancouver. So that doesn't even really need to be said. What concerns me is like where some of these stories are coming from and whether they're building up false hope of accomplishing something that might not be able to be accomplished at this point. It's really tough to tell with Don Garber, outgoing commissioner of Major League Soccer, new commissioner coming in. And I just haven't seen the business plan where someone can come in and make the numbers work. Buying an MLS club, even a club like that's in existence, is extremely expensive. Then if BC Place comes along as part of that deal or whatever is going to happen with the ownership of that is expensive. How do they plan on making money from this entity year in, year out to warrant such an outlay just in terms of what it's going to cost? Do the numbers make sense? And do these interested parties, have deep enough pockets to go on and make it work? These are all relevant questions. There's a political angle because obviously there's a political side to this equation. There's a business angle. There's an aspirational angle for Major League Soccer, what they want next and where they see the team going as well. Obviously, we all want to see the Whitecaps stay. We want to see them thrive. We want there to be a pathway towards that. And I hope these stories are ones that are in the right spirit. They're actually portraying a realistic avenue for this club to go to keep it in Vancouver rather than potentially just building false hope into something that might not be there.
Right. Well, we'll continue to follow this story closely, but clearly the fans and the players are focusing on what is within their control because the supporters are showing up in numbers and this team is tied for the top in the West.